Hi, I'm Larry Puckett, the DCC guy. I know I said I wasn't going to post a video on Friday, but then I got to thinking about it and decided, hey, if it's up there, you guys can pick and choose which day you want to watch it, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, whatever. So I went ahead and put it up. What are we going to do today, though? Well, in the last video, we started work on scenery. We got that pasture landform done. We got sculpt and mold applied, and we got it painted a nice green base color for when we're going to put down the scenery materials, for the greenery, that is. And then we went ahead and painted the areas that are going to be bare earth and gravel and the like, a nice muddy tan color. So that's all ready for those materials to be applied. So that's what we're going to do today, because my basic thought process in all this is the dirt is there first, and then the plants grow out and over top of that and add the greenery that way. And then the ballasting comes along afterwards. Now, some people, they like to do the ballasting first and then the greenery and the dirt and everything. It's my particular preference to go ahead, do the dirt first, then the greenery and scenery, and then do the ballast. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how I do scenery. And, if you want to try it a different way, that's great. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, before we get started, I want to ask you to take a second to subscribe. Click on the subscribe box, and when that comes up, click on the little bell right next to it and click all. That way you'll be notified every time that I upload a new video. Before we get started with doing any of the scenery work, I thought I'd show you I got the rest of these rail aligners installed here at the gap between the two modules. So you can see what these look like here, all painted up. Let me point out one thing that I did do here. There are multiple holes for the track nails and the like. I went ahead and filled those with some super glue. And then once that was dry, I went ahead and painted it. So that helps cover that, because none of the other ties in these sections of flex track have track nail holes in them. So I think it just looks a lot better to have those filled in. You could do that with plastic putty or with super glue, whatever you want, and then just trim it off flush, sand it flush, and then paint it, and they basically disappear. And you can see that the tie pattern matches the existing ties here, even here on the electrofrogs, because those are Pico 00 electrofrogs as well. So these are made to match those. And I did run into an interesting situation here, because with these turnouts back to back, I only had 2 ties that I could cut off. So I had to trim the rail aligners back to just 2 ties instead of 3, so that they would fit in this space. But other than that, they went in just fine, and the alignment works out just great. So I've got all of these. Now, one thing I do want to point out that I think I forgot to mention in the video on these rail aligners, because of the angles that are built into these alignment teeth that you have on each side of the gap, you could have an angle of as much as 45 degrees off of normal, and these will go ahead and made up perfectly, just as if it was a straight line arrangement. So that was not a concern. These work just fine up to 45 degrees. So if you've got something that's more extreme than that, you might have a problem. But for most cases, this is well under 45 here, and that's a standard number 6 turnout, or a large turnout in Pico terms. So let's go ahead and get started then with work here on the layout, doing the scenery. You'll note that I've gone ahead and I've painted everything in sight, either green or that muddy tan color. Got rid of all of that green foam. So now we can go ahead and proceed with gluing down some dirt and sand and gravel and ballast and stuff here on this tan area where we're going to have that type of material. And then after that is all in, we can go ahead and start putting down the ground foam and static grass and the like. Okay, so what I'm going to use instead of glue here is this Mod Podge. And I got the matte version. It comes in gloss, so be careful what you buy. You can use white glue just as well, PVA, whatever. And this works well, though, and it's available at most large stores here in the U.S., such as Walmart, Kmart, that kind of places. Craft stores, Michael's, for example, would have this. And I think that's where I bought this gallon jug of it, was at Michael's. I'm just going to go ahead and pour some of it into this yogurt cup. Don't want to take a lot because I don't want to waste it. So I have my brush here, and with that, I'm just going to brush it on here. Let me brush any dirt out of the way first. Okay, one thing to think about with using this, you don't want to use it straight out of the container because it's going to dry fast. Now you can do two things. You can either dilute it first or just go ahead and dip your paintbrush into some water and then dip it into the Mod Podge and then just spread it on just like you're painting anything else. And that water will go a long way with this material. And, limit yourself to small areas. You can stay within about a square foot. I'm going to try to keep it, out to here, and that's about it. Okay. And that way, it won't dry before you get a chance to apply your scenery materials. Okay, so that's enough right there to get started with. Okay, I'm going to put that in the water so it won't dry. Now, what am I going to use? Well, if you look at a lot of photographs of heritage railways in the area that I'm modeling, I think it's just a lot of ballast around because it looks like a sandy beach there in the yard with a lot of dirty spots around. So I've got this basic, it's not gelato though, I've got this basic white sand. It's kitty sand. I think I probably got it in a 40-pound bag at some place like Lowe's or Home Depot. But any hardware store sells those kind of bags of sand. And then what I did was, I then have this red earth that I made up. I went out to a local road cut around here and just dug up a bucket of red earth, red clay, and let that dry. And then I sifted it to various sizes, okay? And I use this a lot for my basic landforms here. And even though in the area that I'm modeling, it's known for its red earth, you don't see any of this exposed on the railroad for some reason. Out in the fields, yeah, but apparently not in the around the railroads. At any rate, because of the very white color here, I decided to just mix in some of this red clay with this white sand. And it gives it a little bit more color to work with. So I'm going to go ahead and just start spreading it out here on the surface of the Mod Podge. And, it's a matter of just controlling it and let it go, because it's going to go where it wants to anyway. And you're going to, once I apply it, I'm going to come back with my shop vac and just vacuum up the excess, because this stuff, it's cheap enough that you don't really have to worry about throwing it out if you use too much of it. Or you can put a sock or a lady's hose over the end of your vacuum cleaner and catch it as it comes up. Okay, so let me get this on here. So you can see we're getting sort of a randomness to the color here. I'm going to get some more over top of it. But you don't want it to all be the same color. I need to add some more sand to my mix here. Okay, got that, and a little bit more of the red earth in here. And just dump it in there and mix it around. And it's going to stain it. Okay. Okay, now that's that area done. Now another thing I want to come in with is just to give it a little bit more variety in color, just to throw in a little bit of light gray ballast in here, particularly over towards the railroad tracks. That's all going to get covered by, the ballast when it's applied. But for now, let's just add a little bit more in there for variety. I also have some cinders, so we'll drop those around just for fun, because this is all going to get mixed in over time here. And if you get too much, you can always just come back and tone it down a bit. Okay, now, what I want to do now then is come back with some scenic cement, which is, in my case, just a mixture of watered down Mod Podge, and then apply that over here to get it fixed in place. Okay, so the first thing we want to do then, in order to allow the scenic cement to spread, is apply a wetting agent. Now, you can use the old wet water, which is a mixture of water with a few drops of dish detergent in it, and that will wet your substrate. And then when you go to apply your scenic cement, your dry materials like this will not bubble up. And that's a very important part of the process, because if you let them bubble up, once they dry, it's going to just be little craters all over your prepared surface. Okay? So what I'm just doing here is just dribbling. This is isopropyl alcohol, 70%, so it's pre-diluted for you at the drugstore. I got this at a local pharmacy, CVS, and you don't have to use it, like I said. The reason I like to use it is because the alcohol dries much faster, and with any amount of humidity, wet water will take a while to dry. So this will dry much, much faster. Usually within 24 hours, I can go ahead and this will be dry, and I can go ahead and do other scenery work, which is very, very important when you're ballasting, because ballasting is one of those chores that seems to go on forever. Okay. Just takes a while to get this all wicked in. But you can see as I apply it, it's wicking in to the surrounding material. You can see right here where it's kind of bubbled up. I'm going to dry that, knock that down, like that. And this is not the last of the work we'll be doing here, because once this dries and is complete, I'll be coming back with materials to do a roadway, because I'm going to have a small road here. The cattle pen is right here, so you have to have a way for vehicles, trucks and the like, lorries, to drive up, and the coal dealer will be over here nearby, so we have to have a roadway in here. Just going to go ahead and do this real quickly. There we go. Okay, so that's fixed in place. And now we can go ahead and hit it with scenic cement. Now this is just a 2-to-1 or a 3-to-1 mixture of my Mod Podge and water. Okay, so it's just a very dilute mixture of what I've been using here as the scenery glue anyway. Okay, now this is in a ketchup dispenser bottle that I got at a local restaurant supply store. So I think I'm not going to try that. I don't know that that's a good idea. When I'm applying ballast, I will use this, to apply it, but I want a little bit more control here. So now you can see as I apply this, because I've pre-wet the materials, the glue just spreads right on out and wicks on out into the surrounding materials. And also because of it, you can go ahead and just apply it freely across here. Do not drop it from a high altitude though, because that will cause it to form little craters. But if you're doing it right above it, it will flow right out into it, and you can just bring it down through here like this without any problems at all. Okay, that should be enough to do it. I'm going to put that in there. And now, while that one's drying, let's go ahead and do this area back here. So I've got my paintbrush still here. So let me bring the container, and I'm going to bring that out to here this time. And get it just down in here. Okay, there's that one again. Okay, now we can, let me check, make sure I have enough to do this, and I don't have enough left, so I need a little bit more sand. Mix it in, get that little bit of tan color to it. I'm not concerned about it getting on the tracks and the like because I can vacuum that off. It doesn't have any adhesive on it or any glue at all, no scenic cement. So this is just going to be a no man's land out here between the tracks. So this area will probably get some vegetation on it as well. I hadn't planned on doing that yet, but I think I probably will do that. It'll just be some scrub veg in here. And that will allow me to use it to cover the gap there. That's always a problem with these modules, is ways to cover the gap and make it as inobtrusive as possible. And we'll have some cinders that have gotten out of locomotives, and you find cinders all over. They used it for, they used to just dispose of cinders in various ways on railroads. They would use it in yards for the ballast and the like, and in some yards, and particularly in the U.S., everything in a yard would have been ballasted. So a couple of my yards here, I have major areas that are just covered with cinders instead of regular ballast. Okay, let's go ahead and put some wet water, some alcohol, Okay, now let's work on getting this in place. Okay, now that those are done, I'm going to go ahead and continue painting on some Mod Podge here. And I had a comment recently that I should be adding links for all of these materials that I mentioned during my videos. Now, one thing I try to do during the videos is mention where I get a lot of these products. And a lot of them, like the Mod Podge and Sculpt the Mold and that kind of thing, liquid nails for projects, you know, those things are, I think, are so common and so readily available that I don't mention where I get them, or I don't bother putting it in the description. If you don't have any idea where to get that, even though I mentioned it in the video, if you don't have any idea where to buy stuff like that, there's two avenues for you. Number one, you can ask me in the comments where I got it. And number two, you know, you can just do a Google search or any kind of a search, and that will get you the answer that you're looking for as to where this stuff is available. I mean, I checked and I just entered Sculpt the Mold into my browser search window, and you know, it came back with half a dozen places where I could just go up the road and purchase Sculpt the Mold. And the same thing for liquid nails. Also, if you have an Amazon Prime account, most of this stuff is available from Amazon Prime, and it'll be delivered to your front door, and you don't have to even put on a mask to go out and get it. That's typically, I mean, I buy a lot of stuff off of Amazon. Unfortunately, that's right now, with the COVID situation, as far as I'm concerned, that's the safest way to shop. But, you know, you can, like I said, you can get a lot of this stuff at places like Walmart. You can get it at places like Lowe's and Home Depot and other big box hardware stores. They sell, you know, liquid nails for projects. And most of this stuff, there's nothing magic about where to get it. When I do mention stuff, or when I do use things that have limited availability, I do put a link usually in the description. Because, you know, I know that it can be difficult to find some of the technical stuff. With the Model Tech products, I did add a link to the description for that. When I do those kind of things, I always, as I say, try to go back. I try to mention the source for some of these products as I'm talking about them, okay? So like I said, I got the Mod Podge at a Michael's Arts and Crafts store in my area. And Sculpt the Mold I got there as well, although it's available at Walmart and a number of other places. So a lot of these products, you know, there's no magic to finding them. And, you know, typically the way I find them is I do a search, you know, using Google or some other search engine to find out where they're available. I'll go ahead and finish working my way around and do the rest of this and the rest of the layout here between now and the next video. And in the next video, this will be done so we can go ahead and work on the scenery here on the pasture. Well, that's a wrap for today's video. We've got a lot of work done as far as scenery work, and we've got a lot more to do. We've got the greenery to put down, we've got the ballasting to do, and then, you know, I've got to get a backdrop installed here. I'm still waiting for, you know, products at some of the hobby shops in England to come in, because they have one back scene that is out of stock everywhere that I am waiting for. In the meantime, I think once we get this initial scenery work done, I'm going to go ahead and add a backdrop. So that's something coming as well. Have a great holiday weekend, and we'll see you here on Monday with another video from the DCC Guy. Bye now.